Hello and welcome to Channels Book Club. My name is Olakunle Kasumo and it's great to be back on the show today. We're always excited here to talk to writers, authors, publishers, and book lovers. We love to look at one new book every week on this show. Today we are digging into the subject of motherhood. Don't we love our mothers? Mothers are important all over the world. They are so important. They feed us, they raise us, they cry when we are hot, and they just love to see us grow to become good and great people in life. Kudos to all mothers out there. Our guest author today has done us a world of good by writing this lovely book that is all about motherhood. She used her personal experience to teach and share and inspire on the subject of motherhood. Let's get to meet with our guest author for today and then dive into our conversation with her. Enjoy this.
Yewande Olupitan is a United Kingdom-based medical practitioner who has had a non-linear career as a doctor. Her professional healthcare focus has been emergency medicine. Over the years, Yewande has made significant contributions to healthcare projects, touching the lives of ordinary people across Nigeria and beyond through her services to frontline medical missions. Chronicles of Mama is her memoir and her debut book. In it, Yewande takes the reader through the peaks, pits, and perplexities of her life as a new mom. She shares lightheartedly her joys, lessons, and challenges in this candid snapshot into her journey of motherhood.
Yewande, nice to have you on Channels Book Club.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a lovely and great opportunity to be here.
Great to have you here at last, I should say.
Finally.
And how is the United Kingdom? The lockdown easing, COVID easing, right? Is that correct?
Yes, we are gradually coming out of it, although we're being very careful about it. So we're just taking things one day at a time and seeing how everything will turn out.
Amazing. Well done. Well done. So, Chronicles of Being Mama, lessons from being a new mom. Good work you've done here. What inspired this book?
Believe it or not, I stumbled into authoring. I'm an accidental author. So what happened was that, like I was telling you, that this lockdown brought a lot of things. I invested in personal coaching for myself because I really wanted to like jumpstart my life goals and my dreams. And in the course of personal coaching with my coach at the time, my life coach at the time, Debola Deji, I was given an assignment and we're trying to craft my message, my life vision. And she asked me to write all the things I knew about, just random stuff. And by the time I churned out what I did and gave it back to her, she was like, "You should write a book." And I'm like, "No, not yet. I'm not writing a book till like I'm 60." I said, "No, seriously." And she went on and on. And immediately she just got somebody to help me structure a manuscript. She was like, "If that's what you do, no, you just do on your Microsoft Word." And honestly, that is how the book came about. I did not decide that, oh, I wanted to write it. But of course, in the course of writing it, I experienced life. I went into the valley of despair, despondency, came back out again, and finally got the steam to finish up because I had to ditch perfection. I was trying to write one whole big volume, but you know what? I said, you know what? Just write out what you have now and make it a series and see how it goes. And just give yourself that chance at seeing how your dreams can come to be. And that's how Chronicles of Being Mama came about.
This is a book about motherhood and for mothers and for those of us that are not mothers to have an
Yes.
idea of what motherhood means, right?
Yes, a snapshot into some parts of motherhood, honestly. So basically, when I was writing this, I really wanted to share my life story and my challenges in a very down to earth and relatable way. This was based on the kind of like reactions and conversations I've been having privately behind the scenes with people, what people usually called me for, what people usually wanted to discuss or confide in me about, things I've counseled people about. And, I just always use my own example, say, oh, this is what I did in this situation. It wasn't perfect, but this is how I sailed through it. And that is really honestly how it is, because I realize for a lot of us women, especially women of African origin, because of the kind of cultural conditioning we get as general as a culture, not just even Nigerian women, there are a lot of things we can't openly talk about, and we just silently suffer and bear it and assume those are part of life. So I just wanted to bring so much light to the conversations that were going on in women's minds. And I was surprised at how many people identified with what I went through and some of the things I shared. I thought I was just sharing my story, but apparently, our humanity is a common experience. And that's one of the lovely things I learned by the time I released this book, because I really reconnected and connected with old and new friends, new people that I've never previously known. And it was all about these conversations about all the challenges and the experiences of being a mom.
Fantastic. Now, at times, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when while going through. I mean, some of those experiences were just hilarious. How
Exactly.
how far are we? Those of us who are not mothers, those of us who are men, how far are we from truly grasping what it means, to be pregnant with a child and to carry a child and then ultimately deliver that child?
Okay, so the truth is, this is just my opinion. Don't quote me. Truth is, you will never really understand what it is to be a mom because you're not a mom. However, you can get some insight, and all of that comes from really being open-minded about having these conversations, being a little more observant about picking up the things that are going on in the women in your lives. You know, so it just gives you an idea. At best, what's what a real woman really wants from her partners and her family and her support group is really empathy and just that support. Nobody expects you to understand how it is, because sometimes I don't even understand myself all the time. So how much more another person? No, that's the honest truth. So really, it just brings an empathetic point of view when you can see something through another person's eyes, and it just requires really some level of openness and vulnerability to be able to identify with other people's challenges.
And I think that's part of what you've tried to describe in this book, because as I was reading, I was thinking about my own wife when she was pregnant, with our children, and I said, "Oh, okay, I didn't get this then, because you were very descriptive." Um, One thing that struck me is the emotional is a rigmarole that a woman
Yeah.
experiences, while carrying a child. The hormonal changes that lead to emotional changes over time. You tried to describe that. Uh, what was going through your mind as you wrote that? What did you want to achieve with that?
First, honestly, I was scared because I was like, do I want to put this story out to the world? I was like, okay, but I realized that if I wasn't being authentic, I would never be really able to help anybody, because much more than just writing a book and achieving a goal for me on my bucket list was reaching out to people and actually helping someone to let them know that you're not alone. So the emotional travels, that is one of the most difficult things women find to talk about, because one, everywhere in the world, not just in Nigeria, it's just such a difficult thing to talk about what you're going through emotionally, because emotions are not things that people like set as priorities. Emotions are like the soft things of life, and they usually ascribe it to being feminine. But everybody undergoes emotional issues. But with pregnancy and with hormonal changes, it takes another dimension. And this is one of the tricky areas that we as women have to learn to navigate for even our inner peace and this self love journey. So, what I really wanted to achieve there was that, what, it's okay sometimes not to be okay.
Mm.
It's okay sometimes not to be okay. And there's nothing absolutely wrong with you. And even if you decide there was something wrong with you, and organically, really, there's some evidence that there's something wrong with you, there's always help, there's always support, and you need to speak out.
Mm.
And really, that's all I need to, because once you speak out, half of the problem is solved. It's only when you open your mouth to speak out, you can actually find someone who might actually be able to help you, to signpost you to where you can get help. or or just generally just share the burden. And sometimes the solutions lie within you. All you needed to do was just ventilate the burden. And that's what I wanted to achieve about writing about my emotional rigmarole.
And communication is absolutely key, isn't it? I mean, from what you've
There's,
said
there,
now. Now,
yeah,
one of the things I really like about your book is at the end of each chapter, you then draw a life lesson and you take the reader beyond that actual experience a mother has or that you had. So you now draw a life lesson. And I mean, a reader could just go to those lesson pages even without reading the rest of the book and really have a
yeah.
lot to get. An interesting one is at the end of chapter 3. You are a doctor, Yuande, and
Yes, I am.
you had an embarrassing experience where your baby had a rash and you
Yes.
ran to the hospital only to find out that it was not a big deal and you were embarrassed that how could
Exactly.
I, a doctor, not have known this. That was
I'm telling
hilarious.
you. Exactly. So those are the kind of changes that go on in a woman's life. All these hormonal and emotional changes, they bring about waves of self-doubt, anxiety. These are the effects those kind of things have.
Okay, great. So let me read what you wrote after chapter 2. Lesson. The best laid plans can change in the most dramatic ways, yet it is okay to go through the cycle of accompanying emotions and uncertainty. You are still in the game, regardless of whatever upheaval comes your way. Believe it. Powerful lesson. Tell me a bit about that.
Okay, so what happened was that if you read the book, so in the course of my pregnancy, it was my first pregnancy. I had all sort of lovely ideas of the type of mom I'll be, how the pregnancy would go, the delivery process. I planned all these prenatal classes, and then unceremoniously, 2 days before my expected date of delivery, I went into labor, and it was okay. I didn't feel exceptionally bad apart from the pains. And when I went into hospital, what happened was that when they strapped a machine called the CTG, cardiac tachograph, which monitors the uterine contractions and the baby's heartbeat, it stayed bleeping, giving the alarm signals that things were going wrong. And I was shocked because I'd had a lovely, uneventful pregnancy and I was looking forward to everything being fine. So the indication was that I was going to be escalated to having a cesarean section. That means I was going to be delivered by operation, and that was not in my plan at all. It was my plan B, but I was like, last resort. And that's when I really knew that everything was being picked apart little by little. It was not funny, and I was so fixated on that idea of this. Oh, I must have a natural birth and this and that I wasn't looking at the time, except when I saw my baby being delivered, about the health and safety implications of, just doing the most expedient thing to ensure the health, the survival of myself and my baby. And that's when I knew that, what, it doesn't matter. Everything happened. By the time I saw my child had to be, he had respiratory failure at birth. So he had to be in the neonatal intensive care unit on oxygen therapy for a couple of days. It was quite challenging. By the time I saw him, I was like, oh my God, nothing compares to anything about all my best laid plans. The important thing was just to just focus on the moment. And that's what I was trying to achieve with that chapter by saying believe it that everything will work out even when everything is tumbling, but allow the emotions sit through and allow yourself calmly go through them. And that's where the challenge is. Just sitting through the emotional upheaval. It's not easy. It's easier said than done, but it's possible.
Hence your lesson here. The best laid plans can change in the most dramatic way.
Very dramatic.
Fantastic. You were all prepared, but everything went.
Everything, I
I
was
mean,
even
everything
planning.
went differently.
Yeah, and I was even planning a surprise party, 40th surprise party. I was the event organizer for a friend. I was the one that was surprised because I was already doing everything, still trying to call caterer, making sure we're going to do it surprise. And then I couldn't even do anything. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to my friend's party? Yeah, but life happens.
Life happens. So, Yewande, let's take one more of your very powerful lessons, one of the powerful lessons in this book, and then we'll round up there. Chapter 8, which coincidentally is my favorite chapter. Help is an action word, you titled it. And the background story here is, maybe I'll allow you to tell us the background story, but I like the way you asked for help and your friend gave you that help, and it's practically saved your life. Okay, but let me read the lesson at the back, and then maybe you can talk a bit about it as we round up. Lesson here is asking for help is a sign of both strength and vulnerability. Don't get it twisted. Suffering in silence or living double life of quiet desperation has no heavenly rewards or earthly accolades. It's amazing how many of us don't know how to ask for help. The simplest of things, the most expedient of things, but we just never ask for help. And you had that experience. Tell me a bit about this as we round up.
So basically, the background to that was that at that time in my late pregnancy, my husband had to relocate to the UK to do some of his training, and I was living at home alone with a childcare arrangement. But that ended abruptly, and I was like, oh my God. The nature of my work as an emergency medicine doctor is I mainly work shift work. And because I'm a middle grade doctor, I usually would have to cover like the unsociable hours, like not complete nights. I used to do nights, but I had to stop. And so it was really, really scary. My son had just started school, but I had to find a solution. So thankfully, I asked for help. Initially, I asked for help. I got some of my family friends, God bless them. They were picking up my son, putting him to bed. And after I finished work at 2 a.m., 12 or 2 a.m., depending on the shift I was covering, I would pick my sleeping son up and drive back home. So that was working for me up until one night life happened. Where I lived in a very lovely seaside village, like about 16 kilometers winding roads around a really big lake. And you drive through the woods at some point. So I was driving. I wasn't particularly tired, in my opinion. However, I became sleepy on the steering, my sleeping son in the back. And all of a sudden, a deer just ran across the road into the opposite side of the woods. And I had to brake, suddenly. And this was like past 2 a.m. in the morning, very chilly morning in October, I remember. And I was like, oh my goodness, because I was like,
Close
I
shave.
realized how close. Yeah, I realized how close I was to losing my life, and I just sat down there, wound down, with a really cold crisp, and said, "You know what, Yewande? In to be honest, the way I talk to myself, the Nigerian way, I say, Yewande, who sent you this message?" I was like, people love you, you love yourself, you can't be doing this for everybody, that you just have to look for a way for me to make this work. So when I went back to sleep the next day, I did all my stuff. I spoke to my husband about it. I said, okay, I will do this. Do you know that I kept procrastinating about asking this my friend help? I kept throwing the excuses that she has a little son, she won't be able to come. I'm asking her to move and leave her comfort because she lived a town away that was 2 hours away from me. I was just going on and on and on. I finally asked for help. Do you know what? She agreed immediately without even thinking, without even dropping a breath. Not only did she move in, like I just wanted her to just come in, just help me with picking up my son so I could actually rest. And because I had a few weeks to start my maternity, she came in with all sorts of love. She was helping me with everything. When I say everything, she got my meals ready for me before I was going to work. I had packed lunches. The boys were happy. It was unbelievable. It was one of the happiest times of my life. And I had the chance to develop and deepen a relationship. And I'm so grateful. I'm so, so grateful. But I just imagine if I had not asked, if I continue entertaining the stories in my head and giving excuses for why I shouldn't ask that, or it will look as if I can't manage my thing or I don't have my things all together. But I'm so happy I asked because it helped. It was lovely and it was a huge relief. It helped me nurture, get ready for birth, and we have a lovely family relationship today with that particular family friend.
Wow, wow. And that is why you wrote here that asking for help is a sign of both strength and vulnerability. It's just amazing how many of us don't ask for help. And that person could be so eager to help us, could be so eager
Very.
to lend a hand. It's amazing, and we just that's why I love that particular chapter. It's my favorite out of all the chapters in your book. Well done. Thank you, Yewande. Thank you. It's been nice having this chat with you. Chronicles of Being Mama, Lessons from Being a New Mom. Great to have you on Channels Book Club.
Thank you so, so much for having me. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. And thank you to all your team. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Hello, my name is James Usayan. I'm a media and communication executive with Century Group and the senatorial candidate for Ondo South in the last election, 2019. And it was through this connection I have decided to share my experience with you on this book titled The Competent Youth. I wrote this book, and honestly, it is to challenge every youth out there to be able to advocate and participate in good governance. And so for this reason, I'm going to be reading the chapter 7 of this book so that you can be inspired as well to come all out and take leadership responsibility in our country, Nigeria, and Africa at large. Life is a journey of many phases. We get born, we grow, we get involved in activities of life, actively or passively. We age and transit. Within these phases of condition and opportunities and challenges would definitely vary from one individual to another, community to community, even for nations, from one to another. Great concern it is that you and I discover the need to be actively engaged in the affairs of our domains, communities, and nation. Regarding how such places evolve in governance and relevant administration toward all-encompassing purpose of bettering the lot of the life of circumscribed herein. The arches of your birth are not sufficient to hold you back from participating prosperously in how community is managed and administered. For I was born poor, but I rose above poverty to engage the senatorial platform of governance as a candidate, canvassing and campaigning across multifarious terrains of extreme inconveniences. The discouragement of your environment, talking about the pervasive indifference of so many older figures in the land who have given up on the possibility of positive change, notwithstanding, you must, as a youth, go beyond the reproach of the living dead, the indifferent, and practically change the equation of squalor in the midst of plenty. Change the shameful grips of avarice and greed in the midst of abundance. Evidence across this nation through the change of the handlers of governance. As you bring it back to the virile and able youths, I was awash with discouragement, yet I soared into participatory governance through electioneering involvement and pressure group administration alongside my contemporaries in First Massive Literati, which we call FML. Threats of death are not invisible in the face of the grace of the living Creator to want you to have taken aback from communal contributions and to want to have you write off yourself from putting your hands on the plows of nations, building. For twice death wrote me off, but grace restored me. How dare I waste grace? Who knows whether I was born for such a time like this? A time to have the youths take over the reins of leadership and political governance of this great nation, part of whom you as a youth needs to participate. Then go ahead and present yourself for elective office with a good and deliverable manifesto that is designed to rescue our people from the current political parasite. Let us do this together, changing our strategy from transactional politics to transformational politics with a view to changing our nation and our world for good with evidence, well-being, and awareness of all. God bless.
I hope you've had a good time with us today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. Please send us your messages, your feedback, and your questions. If you have any, we'll be happy to respond to you. My name is Olakunle Kasumu. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.